at its heart, I think social media is just simply people relaying information to other people. That's all it is. And we talk about image problems and things like that. I think, you know, the work that I've done, I do the connected housing study for those of you that don't know it. So I look at about 285 different housing associations and look at how they are adjusting and transitioning to being digital organisations and the trends and what we can learn from that, and it helps accelerate an understanding of what's happening. But what comes up a lot for me is we're really struggling with what I might call technique fatigue. You know, there's an awful lot of conversation around, do I do Vine, do I do Snapchat, do I do this, what's the best way to do this, should I be tweeting like this, or you know, it's all about technique. It's not about the fundamental heart of what good communication is, which is just people relaying information to other people. Now, there's two things that come out of that for me. First of all, through doing the connected housing work, I've kind of been able to understand where this image problem might come from a bit. Looked at the kind of organisations, you know, not very sexy, other organisations that residents, your typical resident, might also do business with or have interactions with on social media, and went for the sort of typically uninterestingly unsexy type of organisations. I don't suppose they'll mind me saying that Kent Police are probably not the sexiest, most attractive organisation to engage with, or Manchester NHS, or just the, they're just kind of average slice of life organisations. Did an aggregate of the kind of followings and engagement rates they have and compared those to the top 100 most digitally connected housing associations. Do you want to know what came out of that? If you look at it as an average, the amount of engagement that the top 100 housing associations have on Twitter compared to these is 2.9%. On Facebook, it's 0.2%. On LinkedIn, it's 4.1%. Pretty good with me. On YouTube, the average number of channel views that the top 100 housing associations has is 11,368, compared to the average of the others is 9,500,109. That's 0.1%. And on Google Plus, it's 1.4%. And we have a really big engagement problem in housing. For all the technique, for all the we've got to be on Twitter, we're not solving, we're not even beginning to meet this problem. If you want the answer to how we're going to solve the image problem, it's going to be when we start listening and not talking. And a lot of other organisations, the kind of organisations that deal with social care, social support, what they have is something that I never hear in housing, which is they have communities where the people that are connected to them talk to one another. They foster communication with, in this case, it would be residents talking to one another, and the housing provider or the brand is just being the host for those conversations of people to one another. That's when the conversation becomes resonant. That's when you become the kind of organisation that people want to pivot around and engage with. The other thing that matters is that when you can play back what you listen and hear, and people go, yeah, that makes sense, that resonates. You start to close the gap between what people think is really going on and what you say is going on. And when I say you, I mean any organisation that's thinking about its image is thinking about it from the inside out rather than what's going on, how can we identify these needs and how can we work with these needs. So, that does really take it back to basics to me, is that this is just about people relaying information to other people. The technique is kind of a red herring, particularly when you kind of look at what's been happening with social media over the last 2 or 3 years. In the last year, in terms of the data, it's definitely been you could call it a maturing of social media, you could call it a dropping off, but there's a lot less acceleration in terms of growth. So where we had triple-digit growth 2 years ago, we've now got average growth of maybe about sort of 30-40% a year, so it's kind of tailing off. And why that's happening in part is that people are not having conversations, they're just trading links. They're just pressing a like button or a favourite button or a retweet button, and the platforms themselves are taking out that conversational element. they're taking that out because they don't need it. From their data point of view, a conversation gives them no better data than if they've got loads of retweets. So they want you to have less conversation and more digital button clicking. And that's worth thinking about when you're thinking about fostering conversations that people actually measure and value in their business with you. So I think there's a lot for organisations to consider, but it's not about, oh, well, just because they've got done that, we need to do it. This is not about experimenting with the latest Vine or Periscope or anything else. For me, it's about get right back to basics, build resonant understanding about what people want, play that back and allow them to talk to one another. Be good hosts, as any really basic, good community-led discourse has always been.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thanks for that.